Shut up and sit down.
The city of Geelong and the surrounding area lie on the southwestern edge of Port Phillip Bay. Its city centre is only minutes away from well-established surrounding rural communities, while its northern suburbs are home to substantial heavy industry. With a population of over 250,000, it's Victoria's second largest city, while being very much a fully functional city in its own right. Being a little over 70 kilometres away from Melbourne, it would be easy to compare Geelong to Wollongong near Sydney. But with the large agricultural sector providing low dependency on its neighbouring city and its array of surfable beaches, I'm finding that Geelong has a lot more of a distinct personality, while Wollongong is pretty much a suburb of Greater Sydney. But don't get me wrong, as Geelong still shares much of its latte sipping culture with Melbourne, it's just I'm not seeing the entire town wake up at 6 in the morning to travel to work. Also, Geelong is not just its CBD, as it has numerous satellite towns spread out along its western peninsula, such as Griffin Springs and Portalington. Many of these waterfront towns look like holiday homes for the rich Melbourneites, and without large-scale hospitals like places like Port Macquarie and Cross Harbour, it looks too cold here for the retirees. And it's hard to describe this place without talking about the weather. I'm now less than 1,000 kilometres away from Sydney and the climate is yet so different. It's like being in a winter storm all year round, where overcast days are considered sunny and when the locals only emerge from their homes to walk their dogs in between the showers. With all the rain, there's not a lot of local public infrastructure. The beaches are only really for the dedicated, and the parks are only really here for those willing to contend with the mud. I grew up with a society that prized the outdoor culture, and here I found it scary to walk onto a football field while not seeing anybody else on it. Also, there wasn't many people to nod good day to as I walked past for kilometres around town. I'm finding it a place where the locals enjoy snuggling up in front of a fireplace with a good book. To the west of Geelong are the Otway Ranges and the world-famous surf coast with the Great Ocean Road. This part of Australia is very unique, with the many waterfalls, weathered sandstone attractions, beaches and windy roads. Heading from east to west, first is Torquay, with a very beautiful beach that rivals any other I've seen. But being overcast and 15 degrees at the start of summer, the only people on the beach are there for walks or in full-length wetsuits. Next is the famous Bells Beach from the movie Point Break, which is a far walk down the hill and is another one for the dedicated. Moving past the Spit Point Lighthouse with even more outstanding coastal views, starts the proper Great Ocean Road at the Memorial Arch at Eastern View. Before the arch, the coastal tourist road is like any other, but afterwards the road hugs the coastline, often sandwiched between steep mountain ranges and the sea. The road is a national treasure and was well worth the effort to experience riding along it. It really points out the massive missed opportunity that Sydney has with the road through the Royal National Park, which is designed more for efficiency rather than tourists or cyclists. Arriving at Apollo Bay, after a consistent stream of tight corners, the road opens up to a small holiday town with a number of restaurants. The road then departs from the coast and moves through the mountain range and the Great Ottawa National Park. After the turn-off, the lighthouse at the Cape has been lovingly restored to function as a worthy tourist stop at the southernmost end. Moving back through the range, meeting up with the coastline once again at Princetown, is the first of a series of monolithic sandstone tourist attractions. The 12 Apostles Lookout is a worthy stop, and this is followed by the Razorback, the Loch Ard Gorge, the London Bridge, the Grotto, the Bay of Martyrs and the Bay of Islands. Stopping at each lookout makes a few 100-kilometre journey into an all-day affair. It's still something I would advise all people to come and see, but make sure you plan to have an entire day to go in at least one direction, and then spend the night at Portland, or expect to come back by the A1 at night time. The weather was looking fine heading out of Mount Gambier, but it was only a few minutes later when the storms and then the Victoria border arrived. The border is very low-keyed, and the only interesting real feature was the change from the South Australian concrete and steel power poles to the more usual wooden ones. It makes me wonder if the more expensive steel poles are more prone to lightning strikes, and a major reason why South Australia has so many power outages. Over the border, the pine trees were still very prominent, and it was only a few kilometres before I arrived at Nelson. The first thing I noticed was a hail on the ground, as I'm still coming to terms with how cold this section of the country is. The second thing I noticed was a sheer jump in economic activity. I continued on to Portland and checked out the lighthouse before looking for some breakfast. Not only did I notice the disappearance of the colonial sandstone houses, as only churches maintain that style, but just how many Victorians were out and about doing stuff, like maintaining the historic tramway. It's really interesting to find that the Great Southern West Walk only nominally goes into South Australia, as the border really does mark a change in personality. Moving down the Princes Highway to Warrnambool and the Great Ocean Road. This road has always been one of the things I wanted to see on this trip. I'd heard so much about it, and now I was finally here. With all the rain, the cattle aroma water was all over the road, and there was a number of times I nearly went for a swim. The first attraction that came up was the Bay of Islands, and the wind and the rain was something else. Followed was the Bay of Martyrs, and I was now starting to leave my rain gear on, as there was little point getting my hair wet. Being such horrible conditions did have its benefits, like easy parking, and there was nobody else there to jockey for the best photo angle. Then came the grotto, the London Bridge. I was starting to wonder what it would have been like crossing the Kimberley if they had named every peculiar rock formation along the way. I was just about to get to Port Campbell when I noticed that the foot peg had come off. The cap screw had vibrated loose, and I hadn't noticed until the peg actually fell off. Lucky I was able to find the peg, but the screw was nowhere else to be seen. Moving through the Lockhart Gorge and the Razorback, stopping at each formation was really starting to slow me down, and I was now quite happy that the famous 12 Apostles was up next. After losing half an hour crossing the border, I still hadn't had lunch, and it was already hitting 5 o'clock. Apollo Bay was some 85 kilometres away, and I thought I could get there reasonably quickly. With all the wind and the rain and all the debris over the road, the twisty turns not only got the better of my two-wheel brethren, but also took me nearly 2 hours to plot my way through. There was such beautiful scenery riding through the Ottawa Ranges, and the low ranges reminded me of some of the pictures I've seen of Ireland and Wales. The trees through the ranges were also very spectacular. I could only imagine how much of a brilliant ride this would have been if it wasn't for all the water and debris. Arriving for now dinner at Apollo Bay, I was thankful that we were nearly only a month away from the summer Solaris, as the day was really starting to get away from me. The Great Ocean Road was proving slow going, and I was somewhat lucky to have reached the Memorial Arch at Eastern View to watch the sunset. The accommodation was now only 50 odd kilometres away, and I knew that I had to come back on a sunnier day to see many of the other world famous attractions like Bells Beach and the rest of the surf coast. I still can't believe how cold this section of Australia is. We're only a week away from summer, and it's colder than a winter blizzard is in Sydney. The locals have since let me know that there are 10 months of winter here in this neck of the woods. I arrived at my accommodation chilled to the bone and very thankful for the central heating. And it's also interesting to see around here the jump in large-scale adventure bikes such as GS's and Africa Twins that I hadn't really noticed until this section of the journey. Staying in a brand new housing estate that has row after row of densely packed 5-bedroom homes is something that I hadn't experienced before. The owner, a recently divorcee with a single child, has separated the front 2 bedrooms with the ensuite and a linen closet as a makeshift kitchenette. The cold is kept outside with the central heating and decent insulation. The neighbourhood is full of young families and has lots of kids riding their bikes around the block, as the local parks are still just empty fields. The bike is doing well and a lot of fun on the Great Ocean Road, wearing away the squaring edges of my rear tyre. I was extremely happy with that road, with the 80 zones without the constant fixed speed cameras or any positions for mobile cameras. The tyres are wearing thin and will soon need to be replaced. I'm expecting it'll take around 2,000 kilometres to ride through Tasmania, so I'm still confident in getting back to Melbourne before replacing them. I got my replacement drone and I now have 4 batteries. You can see that DJI was aware of the problem with the camera guard and have since redesigned it not to rest up against the camera. I still don't know what the internet's going to be like in Tassie, but I'll keep the satellite dish until I get back to Sydney and know what I'm doing. The Great Ocean Road and the Ottawa Surf Coast is a beautiful part of this country. It's one of the best, if not the best, tourist drive in Australia. Geelong is a peaceful place full of great restaurants, and if you're someone who prefers to curl up in front of a fireplace to read a book, then Victoria is really the place for you. While on the Gold Coast, I remember listening to complaints about people who stayed inside all day playing video games. Such people would have a happy home around here, and after spending only a week in Victoria, I can understand why the locals hype up their cafe culture so much, as there's really little else outside to do. Everything here is very spread out, and a car is quite needed to get almost anywhere. There's a very interesting Geelong waterfront where the locals can jump into the harbour on a warm day, but if you want to play golf, then you should be prepared to get covered in mud. And if you want to go out for a bike ride, then you should be prepared to get covered in mud. And if you want to go out and have a picnic, then you should be prepared to get covered in mud. When you see that pedestrian crossings that don't have red arrows stopping the traffic, then you put two to two together, accepting that Victorians are to New South Welshmen as the French are to the English. But giving credit where credit is due, and when crossing the South Australian border, one of the first things I noticed was a massive jump in economic activity. Victoria is a place full of entrepreneurs trying to get something off the ground, and I can't help respecting that. Next stop is Devonport in Tasmania. This will be the first time I've ever travelled 100 kilometres over the water and should provide an interesting experience. So sanctify my adventures around Australia and remember to go out there and do something to enjoy your day.